Hi everybody, thank you for being here. It's very nice to see everybody in the community coming together to know about the risks affecting us about this issue. My name is Chrissy Matei. I'm an internal medicine physician in Fort Myers, Florida. I became a physician in order to empower, teach, and heal my community and educate them about the risk factors for diseases and anything that's related to public health issue. The toxic algae crisis we're facing right now is an unfortunate issue that our community is facing, that our environment is facing, and marine life is facing. As a physician, I hear stories every day from my patients who are facing this issue, who are getting upper respiratory infections, and they don't know how to treat themselves, they don't know the risk factors involved, the short-term consequences or the long-term consequences. So as a physician, it was my duty to help organize this and bring the community together so we could teach you guys and raise awareness for what's going on about this issue. So the toxic algae crisis is not only a public health crisis, but also an environmental crisis, a marine life crisis, and an economical crisis that everybody is facing. So all of us are facing it in one way or the other, and we must come together, be one voice, and keep and fight for our environment to make our community safer for our families and children. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you, Cindy, for introducing me. Thank you all for coming, and to the Calusa Waterkeepers for being part of this event as well. My name is Jennifer Boddicker. I have a PhD in microbiology from the University of Iowa, where I taught and did research for several years before my family moved to Florida 5 years ago. I've lived here long enough to have fallen in love with this state and to feel like Florida is my true home. But you don't have to live here for very long to realize that some things need to change. And that every single person in this room knows at least one thing that needs to change as soon as possible, right? So I'm a microbiologist, and that means I understand how microbial organisms grow, and these algae that make up the blue-green algae are microorganisms. And while I was doing my PhD, I actually did spend some time studying cyanobacteria, which is the major portion of this blue-green algae situation. And I studied how cyanobacteria they regulate photosynthesis versus nitrogen fixation at night. And they use circadian rhythms to do that, and that's a really cool and interesting thing for our bacteria to do, and very rare. But in fact, the cyanobacterial strain that we've got growing in our canals and rivers doesn't need to do that. It doesn't need to fix nitrogen from the air because it can get it all from the pollutants that are coming downstream and feeding it, right? So all that fertilizer, all that pollution is feeding our cyanobacteria and leading to this blue-green algae crisis. I have always been passionately concerned about the environment. When I was in high school, I founded this little group called SAVE, Students Against Violating the Earth. One way or the other, I've been trying to save the planet ever since. Well, anyway, right now, in particular, I feel like it's incumbent upon ordinary citizens to step up and do whatever it is that we can do. And I think this conversation that we're going to have tonight is a really good start. I'll try to answer some questions for you and talk to you and hear your stories after this event as well. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Good evening. So my name is Anisa Kareem. I am an ecologist. I'm a wildlife ecologist. I have a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science from the University of Florida in Wildlife Ecology and Conservation. And we're here tonight to talk about something that's super depressing, right? But look around the room. Look at how many people are here. This is the silver lining. We're coming together as people of this community, as business people, as people who care about the environment, people who are suffering health effects, people who understand that our world is changing maybe in a way that it shouldn't be, and we need to do something about it. So in this room, this is the silver lining. We are coming together to learn about and do something about the issue that is affecting our lives the most. So I have lived in Florida since I was 5 years old. I grew up on the east coast of Florida, and I've loved running around in the woods pretty much my whole life, to the chagrin of my mom, actually. So, you know, I've seen how this state has changed over the years. I'm an old woman. I have seen how our ecosystems have changed. I've seen how the summers are getting hotter. I've seen how our waters are changing. And it scares me because we know that in Florida, our environment is the basis of everything. It's the basis for our quality of life. It's our basis for the economy. And the two biggest drivers of our economy are agriculture and tourism. And we need a healthy environment for both of those to be successful. So what we're doing here tonight is hopefully offering solutions and allowing you the chance to meet with other people in your community who are equally as concerned about this vital issue. The steps we take as a community in the next few months will change the way that this problem is dealt with in a lot of ways. So hopefully we can talk about some of the solutions that we can bring together as a community and talk about who we need to bring these solutions to. So thank you very much for being here. I hope that you found this as informative and enjoyable as we know we're excited to offer or help to offer some solutions. So thank you.
So this tells you all have submitted questions. I understand I only got a small percentage of them to work with today because there were 30 pages worth of questions that came in. And so the speakers chose some that they thought needed to be answered. What we're doing tonight is giving you the facts so that you can, your job when you leave here is to tell at least 5 people. There are approximately 400 people sitting in here. That means 2,000 people will get educated because of your efforts tonight. And that's a really important thing to remember. You're not allowed to just stuff this in the glove compartment on the way home. You've got to practice, you've got to listen, you've got to find the path that you like and share it with 5 friends. Can we all do that?
Yes.
All right. So question number 1 is for all 3 panelists, and we'll start with Prisma, only because she's right there, okay? We all talk about cleaning this up. Tell us, is the government, what the government is doing, if you know, and is it the right thing to do, or are there other things we should be doing? Or have we got this most of the way? Prisma, you want to do it first, Jen? Great. Okay.
Okay, yes, I'm going to start. So, as I understand it, $3 million has been allocated by the state in order to clean up this mess, and $700,000 of that is coming to Lee County to clean up the algae. And so Lee County has put together a plan and contracted with a local construction firm that has some experience with environmental cleanup. And is going to start pumping the algae out of the canals and use reverse osmosis, send the algae to a reverse osmosis plant in order to separate the water from the algae. The algae will be dry and it will die. And then from there, my understanding of what's going to go on after that is a bit sketchy because I'm not sure if it's very well planned out to this point or if it's just not out and available to the public. But it may be put into a landfill at that point, but I think some testing will have to be done to determine the toxicity of the algae at that point, because these toxins that the algae have are very stable toxins. So we have to be concerned about what's going on with those toxins and what happens to this algae even after we take it out of the water.
Thank you. So I'll continue follow up with Dr. Boddicker. So as a physician, it's important to know who's going to be doing this process. Obviously, workers are going to be involved. We know of acute risk factors, health complications involved, and long-term health complications involved. And these workers will definitely be exposed to these toxins. So as a physician, it's important to know we need to make sure as a community that we take care of these workers too who are doing the job. And once we did this, okay, we put put it in a landfill, it's all good, it's all done. How are we going to prevent it? The prevention is the most important. We need to stop this from happening again and again. So as a doctor, I go and see patients. Okay, great, you have food poisoning. I'm going to explain to them how they got food poisoning so it doesn't happen again. But when we clean up and put this in a landfill, it's going to happen again unless we take care of our environment, unless we put stricter regulations for farmers and for those people who are polluting our waters. Enough is enough, so that's the most important thing.
So what's the government doing about it? That was a question, right? So Dr. Boddicker is right. Lee County just got $700,000. The DEP has allocated $3 million to solve this issue, and it's not going to solve it. It is just a Band-Aid on what's going on. And we do have to concentrate on prevention. And when it comes to prevention, the government, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is really doing nothing. The government is actually making things worse, in my opinion. I guess we share some of the same opinions, right? But for the short term, they are cleaning it up. And when they take this algae, when they take this sludge out of our waterways, they have to decide what to do with it. And there are some health risks, obviously, to workers, but we have to think about the health risks to the environment. What are they going to do with that sludge? If it's going to the waste-to-energy facility, is it going to be totally combusted, or is it going to volatilize, right? Is it going to vaporize and go in the air? These are important questions that we have a right to ask. What's going to happen to the equipment that was used to take this sludge out of the waterways? Is that going to be decontaminated? Who comes into contact with that equipment? Is that equipment on our roadways before it's decontaminated? What is the process by which they can assure us that once this equipment is done, that it itself is safe to have around other people? So these are all questions that we have to ask. I work as a land manager, and so when we work with pesticides and herbicides, these are the exact same questions we ask. Once we're done killing an invasive exotic species, what are we doing with what's left? What are we doing with the wastewater? What are we doing with the protective equipment that we've worn? What are we doing with the equipment that we've been using? Are we decontaminating it properly? So this is not, in that sense, this is not really a new way of thinking about things. We know that when we clean things up, we have to make sure that the tools we use are also cleaned up properly. So these are important questions that we can ask people. But I think in the short term, they're doing what they can to remove the pollutants. But of course, we have to prevent the pollutants. We can't come back here year after year and have the same forum and be like, oh, we have to prevent the pollutants. We have to prevent the pollutants, right? Yeah.
So if I could, I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Anissa and I, can we all just drop the doctors and the ethologists stuff?
Yeah,
okay, good. Okay. So Anissa and I spoke a little bit, I spoke with everybody today, just so you know, but Anissa and I were speaking this morning about how we cleaned up, how we brought water and buried it in our substrate and under, yeah, anyway, she's going to explain to you about the sinkhole in Polk County. That's what I want to tell you about, because this is how not to do it, okay? And it's important that you know it, because you need to hold every candidate that you put into office accountable to make sure for everybody.
Okay, so Polk County sinkhole 3 years ago. Does this bring back any memories? There was a company called Mosaic. They had I think it was 215 million gallons of water. Pretty much went down to sinkhole. 235? I'm hearing 235. Does anybody else have that? Okay. So 235 million gallons of water went down to sinkhole. And they told DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, that this water disappeared, but they kind of waited a few days, and then DEP waited about 9 days before they actually told people that, hey, this contaminated water from phosphate mining went down a sinkhole and is very close to a water drinking supply. So this is part of the problem. Part of the problem is that we, as a society, have to demand that our elected officials, the people that are making policies on our behalf, are protecting us. And the law is that if the water does not leave the property, they don't have to tell anybody. So the water went under the property, it didn't flow over land on top of the property, so they didn't feel compelled to tell anybody. I have a problem with that. Does anybody else have a problem with that? Okay. So this is a problem. This is a problem. We have to think about these things logically, right? We have to understand that water that flows into the ground via a sinkhole could, and if it's near a water supply, could potentially contaminate that water supply. So it took Mosaic, I think, 2 years and $20 million to close the sinkhole. That has been done. But this is something that could and probably will happen in our state again because of our unique geology. There are sinkholes opening up in Polk County today, and it's not because of phosphate mining. It's just the incredible amounts of rain that we've had over the last few months. It's just softening the ground up, and the limestone and the clay and the sand is crumbling, and people's homes and backyards and golf courses are disappearing. So this is an issue that does happen in Florida, but we have to think about what happens when it happens in a phosphate mine and what the responsibility is of our elected officials and those that are supposed to be protecting us. And that is the reason to stay involved at every level and hold people accountable. We want to live in safe communities, and that's how we do it. We hold people accountable.
So I want to ask Jennifer a question, but before I do that, I want to remind you that that means you can't turn your back. You have to keep moving forward, and also that we need a strong educational system to make sure the kids are learning and growing up to be conscious preservers of our environment. So Jennifer, what kind of climate conditions create a situation for red tide?
Climate conditions in which we have tons and tons of rain. So our warming climate, summertime climate as well. So we have lots and lots of rain here in South Florida. So that fills up Lake Okeechobee, of course. And what's going to happen to that water? Because Lake Okeechobee can only hold so much because we've dammed off the backside to prevent the water from going to the Everglades, essentially. We've dammed off that backside to allow for sugar production. So it's a big bowl, and it can only hold so much, and so the water has to go east or west, right? So they have to let it out unless we do something about that situation, right?
Can it go south again?
It should go south again. It absolutely should. That's the solution that we need, but that's not what we have currently. So right now, the water is released to either side. So we have this polluted water because it's polluted when it goes into Lake Okeechobee, and it becomes more polluted as it goes down the Caloosahatchee River. Fertilizer, septic system leaks, manure, cattle farms, all of those things contribute to the pollution. It feeds the algae that are growing there, the blue-green algae. Then it gets to the ocean. The blue-green algae can't survive the salinity of the ocean and they die, but the pollutants are still going out there, and even the dead blue-green algae can feed the red tide algae. All right, so we end up with this blossoming, blooming red tide in our oceans, which is a bad deal, and we need to fix that. We absolutely do. We need to restore the Everglades so that we don't continue to have this situation going on.
So Parisima, we're not going to clap at each one. I mean, it was really good, Jen, but we're going to keep going. It was really good. So Parisima, tell us specifically the kinds of health risks that we're looking at as a result of this. Be specific.
So we have two different types of algae. They're both called harmful algae blooms. So we have the red tide that Dr. Bonico was talking about, and the blue-green algae. So both of them are pretty harmful to our health. The most common condition that people can, come to the office with, complain about is upper respiratory symptoms, such as shortness of breath, cough, allergic symptoms, sinusitis, runny nose, itchy eyes, burning eyes. These are the most common symptoms. If somebody has underlying lung disease, such as asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, if somebody has autoimmune deficiency, they are prone to getting these upper respiratory infections or bronchitis or pneumonia. So when you inhale these toxins, they're pretty harmful. And these are the acute infections that patients complain about. The chronic infections, they can affect the gastrointestinal system, such as your liver. We have found out that it does correlate with end-stage liver disease as well as liver cancer. We also have research that shows us facts that it can cause ALS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and as far as skin issues, people, if they're exposed to it, they could get skin rashes, they could get hives. So there's a lot of complications in relation to these toxins. And they're pretty much, they're dangerous. And I did call one of the local hospitals. They did not know how many patients are being admitted for these symptoms. They're not keeping track of them, which is very disturbing because we need to keep data on these patients because down the road in 10, 20 years, we need to know who was exposed to these toxins and what the complications was. So when she told me that, I was really distraught. So I called the Department of Health, I wrote a letter to them, and I said, you guys need to advise all the medical facilities, the hospitals, the medical clinics, urgent care centers. If somebody is exposed to the water, we need to know if they're having symptoms from these toxins. So yes, there's a lot of health complications in relation to these.
Did you get the number of deaths so far? Have they told you how many people have died? Because I've heard like over 24 just out of Naples yesterday alone. 3 in
Can you all hear? Let me repeat. She's talking about, where did you hear that before we spread
I've heard
rumors?
it from someone that is in the hospital field.
Okay.
So they did not give me that information, so I cannot comment on that.
I will tell you there are other people in this room that I work with and volunteer with who have also tried to get the numbers and we haven't been able to get the numbers. So we don't know how many people have died.
Obviously, they're not telling us the numbers because they're trying to keep the economy going. They're trying to keep tourism in here, and this is wrong. This is not how you help and protect the community. We need to speak up. We need to raise our voices, tell the government, tell our elected officials what's going on. People need to know what's going on in this state.
So am I right? I think this is the week of the congressional recess. Am I right? You know, you all know this week, don't you? We haven't heard from Mr. Rooney yet, have we? Yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up. That was my politics for tonight.
Mario Diaz-Balart.
That was it. We also haven't heard from Mario Diaz-Balart, have we?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm getting all the Congress
He's been in
people.
Naples this week.
He has?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay, so I'm going to throw this out for all of you because I don't know who can answer all of it. Okay?
Or any.
Someone has asked about the human health risks of the dead animals, but also the health risks of the animals themselves. You know, like, can we eat it? What can we do? And how far out do we? Truthfully, I was invited to someone's house for dinner last night, and Dave caught snapper, and I said, how far out does that swim? Where did that come from? But has it been out there yet? So, who wants? Good, go.
So when these marine life and the fish and dolphins, when they eat these toxins, yes, it affects their gastrointestinal system. It actually takes away oxygen, so they're killed that way, and it also attacks their neurological system. So that's how they die. So if they have these toxins present and we eat them, we could get shellfish poisoning. And shellfish poisoning is actually the most dangerous one. Somebody asked about, are we allowed to eat shellfish? No. Please don't. So any kind of fish in distress in an environment that other animals are dying, don't eat it. That's not smart. And then if you go to commercial restaurants, if you go to grocery stores, those kind of seafoods are okay to buy because they do undergo significant tests by the health department. So those are okay, but just not anything else. So yeah, the fish are not safe to eat.
I'm going to skip over Dr. Boddicker and go right to the wildlife ecologist to see if there's any other animals we need to be worried about.
Okay, yeah, so don't eat them. That's number one. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm telling you, don't eat them. So the really disturbing part about all of this is that every trophic level is being affected. Every link in our food chain is being affected. You have bottom feeders, you have crabs, you have starfish, you have stingrays, you have sharks, dolphins, manatees, sea turtles. Everything is being affected. We're being affected, right? We can't go to the beach. We can't swim in this water. They're predicting that this red tide bloom that we have right now is going to last into 2019. Right? So it's really bad. And with weather conditions like they are, every time it rains, we have nutrients that just flow off of those wonderfully fertilized lawns down the Caloosahatchee River. Our stormwater treatment systems need to be updated. I know that has nothing to do with the question that you just asked, but it all contributes to what we're seeing. Everything is a factor. And so in terms of wildlife, red tide, the toxin bioaccumulates, so it is in shellfish, and then if something eats the shellfish, they get some of it, and then it just gets worse and worse. So don't eat it. I have a friend that is married to a charter fisherman, and he came back at noon the other day. He said, I can't go out far enough. The people that chartered his boat wanted to catch sharks, and he could not get out of it. He could not get out of it. He said, we can't get out far enough. So this is a huge devastation, not only to our economy, but also to our wildlife. There's a gentleman, I can't see what you're saying, or...
My name's Captain David. I'll give you a real quick piece of information. I got my finger on the pulse. I'm out every single day.
Captain David, do you want the mic?
Yes.
Captain David, run.
I'm going off here. Just kidding. Don't fall, Anissa.
Somebody lost a $100 bill. Hi guys, my name's Captain David. I own a charter company here. It's my career. I've been here my whole life. I'm out on the water every single day, and about 3 days ago, my son and I we started to
Right there. Good. Now we got you.
we started to look for a good piece of water. We started north of Charlotte Harbor, and we worked our way all the way back past Boca Grande, back to our part of town, and found a little piece of it. Then we started at Estero and started working our way back. There's about a 4-mile piece of area that's not tremendously affected, somewhere in Matlacha Pass. That's about where it's at. But as far as the water and eating the fish and stuff, you make a line from north of Tampa down past Marco Island and you go 30 miles out. Wrap your mind around that. That's what's dead.
We're going to have you hear from a couple of other folks later as well. Somebody, David, are you with Captain Swiftly Water?
Oh, they're right
No.
Okay, are you guys right there?
They're right here.
So you know what? Why don't we just let you tell the story? Are you going to talk about the tarpon? That's what we'd like to hear.
Yeah,
Why don't we do it right here? Let's just bundle this all up right here. David, thank you very much. Maybe like hummus. I think we're on the hummus. Good, okay.
The gourmet Indian hummus.
Hi, how's everybody tonight? My name is Captain Chris Whitman. I'm one of the founders of Captains for Clean Water. She wanted me to tell you guys about the tarpon. Daniel and I literally, we were a few minutes late to this. We were just on the water with crew from Good Morning America. We're finally bringing some, national attention to this problem that deserves national attention. We went up from Punta Rassa to Redfish Pass, and in that short distance, 15 miles or so, we saw over 20 dead tarpon, dead cobia, which I have never seen in my life, cobia affected from red tide. They're very, very hardy, tough fish. Thousands and thousands of dead bait fish. It's extremely obvious to us that this is by far one of the worst seasons, one of the worst cases of red tide that's ever hit our area. And as John mentioned, it's literally spanning 130 miles or so of our coastline right now. So The thing is with that is that this is one symptom. This is one symptom of a sick and broken system. There's symptoms down in
here, and because I knew the story, and because some of you have actually seen it on TV already, right? You saw Anderson Cooper, right? Online, however you saw it. And because we got so many requests for what can we do, you now have 2 organizations get involved. Find out what they know and help them stay close so you can keep your eyes open. That's true. So, Teresa, when did you come to this side of the state? Or when did you get, how long have you been around? How long have you been around? I don't want to know your age, I want to know about
So I have been in Florida since I was 6 years old.
Okay, all right, so,
But I went up north for training, so it's been like 11 years.
all right, that'll work. I'm going to start with Anissa on this one just because I know, because of who she is. I'm going to start with you, but don't do the whole thing. We're going to let everybody be able to answer this one. But we want to talk a little bit about the changes in the Constitution and things that we had set up. We had set up mechanisms to be able to make the changes that we needed to make. So I'm going to let you run with that. Are you following me? Don't make it political. Well, make it political, but don't, not partisan. But people need to know. You need to know where it went sideways. That's what I'm trying to do, so you can see when it went sideways and how we got to this point.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Everglades Restoration Plan in general,
I
right?
could not think of the word.
The Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, CERP is what we like to call it. CERP was authorized by Congress in the year 2000. What year is it right now? It's 18 years later, here we are. We still sit with this problem. Part of the problem is that we have special interests that are making more money now than they would if CERP were to be fully implemented. What we need to do, and I'm only going to talk about it from the ecological perspective, is we need to get the water right. We need to get the quantity, the quality, and the timing, and the delivery of our water right. That's what we need to do. How many of you've heard of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, right? The Everglades, there are no other Everglades in the world. She was right. There is no other Florida in the world. We have some amazing and unique ecosystems, and we are destroying them just by the way that we're managing water and what we're putting into our water. So we need to get the water right. We have to make sure that the nutrient inputs, when I say nutrients, I'm talking about pollution, right? Nitrogen and phosphorus. We have to make sure that we keep those out of the water, and we have to make sure that whatever's in our water now, we're able to clean up appropriately. And we have to buy the land south of Lake Okeechobee. We had a plan to do that, and we just didn't do it. Every dam, every spillway, every dike has a spillway. The spillway right now is the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie. We have no real spillway. We have to send that water south. It has to be cleaned appropriately before it hits the Everglades. We have to make sure that we're not encroaching on Miccosukee lands with that water. We have to make sure that the way we send the water south is appropriate. But we have to send the water south. We have to rehydrate Florida Bay. We have to bring our fisheries back. And we can actually do that, but we need the political will to do that. And let me tell you, I'm not going to tell you what party I belong to, because that doesn't matter. This is above party. The solutions are above party. This is about our community. And we need to stand up. I don't care what political party you belong to. If you care about your community, you'll stand together with people of other political parties and make sure you get it done. So we have to get the water right, I guess was the answer to your...
Yeah, that worked. We got there. So, Jennifer, is there a proven treatment process that will prevent the contaminated lake water from damaging your rivers? Can you help us with that? Is there a way to stop the lake and or ocean now, because it's out there in the Gulf? Is there a way to stop this?
I suppose you could build enormous water treatment facilities But I think that's a far too expensive option. I mean, it is possible to clean nitrogen and phosphorus out of water, but it's a crazy idea to try to clean it out of that much water. It makes much, much more sense to not put it in the water in the first place. We need to go back and reinstitute some regulations over septic systems. We have leaking septic systems that are going into our rivers and our waterways. We need to hold polluters accountable.
Yes.
And that's hard politically, but we have to do it because the alternative is we live with the situation we've got, and that's not a good alternative. So we have to stop putting this stuff into the water in the first place.
Get rid of what?
Lawns, no more grass.
Lawns?
Yeah, it's everything. It's fertilizer on lawns, it's fertilizer in fields, it's septic systems, it's everything.
Wait, you're getting ahead. I have it on my list. Hold on. Don't jump ahead of the moderator, please. All right, so Carissima, what do we do then? Because now we understand this is not going to go away tomorrow. You might see the canals look better, but it doesn't mean it's gone, right? And we've already heard that red tide was, Valentine's Day. I'm going to put it on Valentine's Day. It needs to leave. What do you think? So, what happens if someone gets contaminated, Carissima? What do we do?
So it depends what kind of contamination, but I understand. So we have different type of contamination. If they inhale it, obviously you get, like I explained earlier, the respiratory symptoms. So in order to prevent that, if any of you live close to the water, river, canals, ocean, you need to wear masks, filtered painter's masks. And that actually has reduced it by only 45%, so it's not the best method. If you live close to the water again, you need to close your doors, close your windows, put the AC on, and change the filters regularly. Don't eat the seafood, don't eat shellfish that's been exposed to toxins. If your skin gets exposed, make sure you come home and wash it off with fresh water and soap. Also remember, we have pets. They could become affected too, so don't let your pets out close to the water because at the edge there's a lot of these toxins on the surface that the dogs love to lick, and then once they lick it, they get really sick. So, and if they swim in it, they could also lick their fur, and then the toxins can be ingested. So that's really bad too. What else? Don't swim in the water. Don't do any activities in the water. Skiing, jet skiing, nothing allowed. If you see water that smells and is blue-green, don't go in it, please.
And Carissima, what happens? So I've been listening to friends over the weekend even, saying they feel heavy and they just feel pumped.
So that's malaise. It's malaise. It's kind of like flu-like symptoms, fatigue. That's from the toxins that they're inhaling. That up to a mile, the wind can bring these toxins. So especially people who have underlying diseases, lung disease, they can still inhale it up to a mile away. So it's pretty dangerous.
So this morning we read in the newspaper it was 10 to 12 miles, just an FYI. I don't know what scientists they talk to. I just want to put it in there as take some
So I
precautions.
looked up that, and then I know that from the research papers, so they confirmed it was a mile.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Jennifer, the reservoirs proposed by the Army Corps of Engineers are. This one has a bias. I'm just going to tell you, I did not write it, and I won't tell you who did, but this one has a bias. Appear to be inadequate to solve the problem of releasing the dirty water. At this moment, how do you propose releasing it? Because we know it's coming again, because we know we've got a whole lot more rains to come.
Right, I would say that certainly that planned reservoir isn't large enough. It's not going to hold all the water that it's going to need to hold to prevent us from having to release water in the rivers east and west of Lake Okeechobee. So we know it's not enough. It's better than nothing, but it's not enough. And so we absolutely do need to buy more land, and in order to have a larger reservoir, or a series of reservoirs actually, all around the lake, not just to the south, but to the east, west, and north, to hold additional water. And the reason this is necessary has to do with climate change, that word that can't be said in Tallahassee right now, but it's real. So, more and more rain, and we're going to have to put that water somewhere, right? So we'd like to store some of that water, clean it up, and send it south eventually, right? We need more water. Unfortunately, right now we have a situation where it's going to be difficult to get more of that land because of a law that was passed in 2017 that prevented the use of eminent domain for U.S. sugar property. That kind of hamstrings us. That hamstrings the legislature in getting leverage, basically, to make a good deal to buy more land. So, but that's a law that could be changed. Just saying.
John, I think I learned it from you, but it might not have been you. But if I'm wrong, just tell me, because I'll take it. Oh yeah, I got two Johns over there. I can talk to either one of them. Okay. Is that the some of the sugar water is actually not because of the law, but because of the okay that was given by somebody. They're actually putting some of that dirty water in the public land. Am I correct? Who is that?
Yeah, I'll
Have at it.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay, so if you are a business owner or you live in a gated community, you have to hold your stormwater on your own land before you allow that water to go into public land, okay, into public waters. That's fair. You need to clean your water before you release it. That's not actually what's going on with sugar. Sugar is storing land on storing their dirty water on public land, and then South Florida Water Management District is back pumping it into the lake. South Florida Water Management District actually manages the water 18 to 24 inches below what they should be managing it for, specifically for sugar. And that needs to change. We have things that we can do in this state that other states, so by the way, this happens in other states too. We have sugar in other states as well. We have cyanobacteria in other states as well. We are not unique when it comes to that. The federal government has delegated its clean water authority to the state. EPA says, hey states, you guys go do what you need to do. Florida has not done what it needs to do. 22 other states have enacted nutrient loads, and they have thresholds that people have to meet. We haven't done that. We had, in 1999, we had a harmful algae bloom task force that was made up of scientists and academics and people that are specifically working on these issues, and it was defunded. It was defunded. We need that task force to come back. The state legislature tried to pass that last year, it did not pass. The governor did not sign it. Steps that we are trying to take to make our community better are being thwarted in Tallahassee at the state level. We need to do more at the state level. Our water management district should be managing water for all of us, not just special interests. And Tallahassee, the people we send there, should be working on our best interests, not their own.
I have lots more questions. We can move on.
Yeah.
Judge, you want to say something more? Okay. This one, I love this one. I'm going to make it nicer than it is. But I could be bought to read it to you. This person asked if we would identify the person who failed to implement a voter authorized purchase of the sugar land. We're not going to do that, but.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
Yeah. We're not going to do that. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I was making some phone banking calls the other day, and someone asked me who I was voting for, and I said I can't tell you that because I'm sitting in the party headquarters. But if you've got my phone number, call me. Okay? But I wanted to bring it up that there were moments, there were benchmarks along this path. That was the important part. And so I want to share with you a story in my own personal life, so that you understand that you can't just look at your congressman or your governor or your whatever, your legislator, because it's everywhere. Everybody has to be on guard. This is the story I'm going to tell you. In my life, I've done a lot of work in health economic policy. And in my life, I really never paid attention to the Board of Education. But all of a sudden, there was all kinds of changes being made all over the country, and I went, well, what do we, then you got to kind of decide, do you want those changes? But then I found that one of the people on our Board of Education, who I thought was a reasonable person and was, I'll just use the word accountant, okay, is now on the Florida Constitution Committee. So that's a leapfrog. Why did I tell you that story? Because every person that you vote for matters. Everyone. You cannot just say, I'm going to work on the president and the governor and the congressman. That's all I want to know about. No, you need to know everybody. You need to know everybody. The sheriff's department. You need to know education. I just want to put that out there at this time.
Yes, that was amazing. Thank you so much. So another important thing about all of Cindy's comments, so there's a lot of people running for office in about a couple months or in August for me. So it's really important for every one of us to learn about their voting history. So whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, independent, nonpartisan, please review their voting records. They could say something to you and be voting something else in the House, which is very disturbing. So if you believe in the environment, make sure these people do vote for environmental bills for it, not against it. That's all I have to say.
Okay. That's our moment for politics. We're going to move on now. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. There are some that would like to know what's the most important thing. Like tonight, we've been talking a lot about sugar. We haven't talked about agriculture, who also does some interesting things with their waste. So the question is, are the pollution levels the result of inadequate regulations of nutrients or something else? I mean, if we had to stop one thing, or in the rank order, is there a rank order of what's the worst thing that's getting into our water? Is there an answer to that?
Depends which toxin you're talking about.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you want to say what you just said? Because that's important.
So, great question. It depends which toxin she's referring to. So remember, we have harmful algae blooms that are being produced in the waters. One of them is being produced in the ocean, which is salty, and the other one is in freshwater lakes and rivers, and that's the blue-green algae. So the blue-green algae, most of it is coming from pollutants, such as these nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizers and from the farmlands. So these, and also from the sewage waste, but most of it is coming from the farmlands that the people are creating. The other one, the red tide, is actually a natural one that's being produced in the ocean 10 to 40 miles inshore. So that one is actually produced naturally by the sediments under the ocean floor. But once the current pushes it inshore, it's whatever pollutants are on the shore, like close to the sand, that's making them preserve, that makes them colonize. So once they reach the shoreline, the red tide is colonized by all the pollutants we have created. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay,
I'd like
so,
Guard your pollutants.
yeah, so it's really important. Basically, like Anissa and Dr. Bonifer has said, we have to prevent these from happening in order to, help our environment. So we can clean it up as much as we want, but it's going to happen again if we don't prevent it.
Cindy, I think that Jennifer and I have a follow-up to your follow-up and Teresa's follow-up.
Who wants to go first?
Okay, this is my personal opinion. I don't think we can really rank the causes of the pollution. I think we have to look at them each as very serious, and each one needs to be fixed and cleaned up. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, keep totally right. We've altered our system so much, and there's so many of us close to our water bodies, we can't just remove one thing. If we take out the the dairy farms, that's not going to do it. If we take out agriculture, that's not going to do it. We don't need to do that because that's 20% of our economy. If we take out septic systems, it's not going to do it. We've altered our system so much that it's not just one thing. Everything contributes a lot because there's so many people and so many pollutants going into the water. We have to address everything concurrently.
Thank you. I have one more follow-up question, and I think it's Jennifer, but I don't know, so I'll just toss it out there and y'all tell me. The mosquito control district in Southwest Florida has seen substantial growth. I want to say thank you because then I don't have to take Benadryl every day. Has the addition of mosquito pesticides been ruled out as a contributing factor here? Ms. Jennifer, Dr. Jennifer?
I don't know that anyone has looked specifically at whether mosquito pesticides contribute to the growth of algae, but I would say just probably that's not the cause. When we look at so much pollution going into the rivers, there's so much there. There's detritus from Hurricane Irma. That is actually a source of the nutrient load as well, and then all of the other sources of pollution, the fertilizer, the septic systems, everything we keep going on and on about. And we know that those really feed algal growth. That is well documented, well researched, well established stuff. So there's not a lot of research into whether mosquito control mechanisms are feeding the algae. I would say probably not. I would say it's probably more just something that's happening at the same time. We have all this rain, all the runoff into the rivers contributing to the pollutants in the river at the same time. That, of course, fuels the growth of mosquitoes, and so we need more mosquito control. And of course, we have more development than ever, more people needing to be protected from mosquitoes. So I think it's just something that goes, it's just happening at the same time. It's not a cause and effect thing.
Thank you. And Farisla, there's a subtle connection here that I want to put, but it's a forced one, but I want to put it on our radar, which is that we have these neurotoxins in assorted colors in the water, and then we have neurotoxins from the mosquito spray. So does that make the implications for mammals, I'll do it that way, for land life? Does that make it, does that multiply it, or how does that work? I'm asking you, how do we need to be aware of, if our land was sprayed for mosquitoes, should we stay indoors the next day and not go swimming, that kind of stuff? I'm trying to find that out. How does the toxin from one not intersect, but maybe lay on top of the other and people could get even sicker faster? That's my question. Took me a while, sorry. Okay.
So I haven't seen any research for that, but if somebody is spraying, and obviously if you have underlying health issues, then I would not be outdoors.
And probably if you were feeling the other toxins, you
Right,
should probably go
obviously,
outside.
But I'm sure it exacerbates it, but there's no research that I've come across.
Okay. And then one more follow-up question for you. When the first round of the toxins came out, of the algae came out, people were being told if they had symptoms, they should call the emergency department. Are you still recommending that?
Oh, of course,
Or
yes.
reporting to the department?
So if you do have symptoms, obviously, if it's severe enough, then yeah, go to the emergency department, and you could go to the urgent care center or your doctor's office. That's even better because it saves taxpayers money. So, but yeah, if it's severe enough and you have underlying health issues, then yes, that's the best option.
Thank you. How we doing? Y'all good? Yeah. All right. I want to ask a question that someone tried to usurp from me, and find out what happens when we get Irma's granddaughter coming through this fall. I'm really serious because we had a small little incident under Irma. Wasn't it a pig farm? Was that what happened? Remember, the pig farm got the hurricane, or some big storm went through, and there was a lot of everywhere from the pig farm. So.
And
A lot of food. I like that. That woman is a Southern woman to the core. Oh, of course she is. It's true. Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying? What are we going to do about the next hurricane that comes through? Because there's every possibility.
Okay, so yeah, climate change is real. We're going to have more hurricanes. Sea level rise is real. So we have to deal with that in conjunction. What we have to do is, we actually need, and I've said this before, we need to buy the land south of Lake Okeechobee, and we need more land than they're actually planning for, because we're getting more water now than we actually had when they drew up the plans. So we need more land. We need more than 187,000 acres, which we don't have. Senate Bill 10 that was passed last year that gave us a little bit of land, but also put in that poison pill that, hey, you can't use eminent domain. And I'm not a fan of eminent domain, but when we're talking about quality of life and public welfare, we need to be able to manage our water. When a hurricane is coming, the option should not be release it down to Coonsahatchee, release it down to St. Lucie. That should not be the option. The option should be send it south and make sure that we have enough to hold the water. And we know we're going to have more water now. We have more 100-year events now than once every 100 years. So we have to figure that out, and we need to figure that out fairly quickly. So that's what we do. We buy more land. So.
If there's a storm surge right now, what happens to the community right now?
If there's a storm surge right now, we have a huge health risk on our hands. There's, honestly, I mean, we have to look at it in terms of an infectious disease outbreak, and I'm not a doctor, so I should probably sit down and let the doctor talk about this.
So obviously, yes, it's going to be catastrophic. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, evacuate. Yeah,
It's-
we need to get out.
Okay, this time y'all gotta evacuate, I think is what the story is. Don't even try to get here.
So the cleanup is one thing, the fact that there will be dead animals and toxins everywhere, it's just,
It's horrible.
it's,
So let's go to a kinder place, otherwise we're all gonna start crying and singing terrible songs. So the congressman that you're gonna go visit this week said we just got $500 million to repair the dike. The dike is Lako, right? And just so you know, it's already cost $144 billion to go just like a block. It went a little further, but it hasn't gone very far. So we're going to get $500 billion, and it should be done sometime in 2023. Just want to let you know, when you go visit him, I want you to talk to him.
Unless we have a ring.
One of the things I haven't heard is what did you just tell us how much land we need south of, did you do that?
I did not.
You chicken. Would you tell us now?
I would like to know, why can we not buy land?
Because there's a law now that you can't do that.
Okay.
We had a deal. We had a deal in 2009 that we could buy the land. And what happened in 2008, economically, what happened?
Recession!
Right? We had the recession. So, the wise men in Tallahassee said, let's not do this. Not a good time. We don't have the money. We should have bought it then. But as the years went on, then we had a change in regime, I'll say, and then the will to buy that land disappeared. Until last year, we got a little token, hey, here's a little bit, but hey, you can't take any more. That's why we don't have people with the political will that actually understand the science and the need to buy the land. And let me be very clear. I'm not anti-sugar. We need the sugar industry. We don't need one industry to pollute our waters and withhold the land that we actually need to solve this problem. We can work with them. This has to be a compromise. We compromised with them before, and in 2009 we had a deal. There was a compromise reached. We can do that again, but the right people have to be at the table. That's the point.
So we can't hear you. Let me add just a couple of things that.
When you say sugar,
Yeah,
who are you talking about?
we're talking about big sugar. We're talking about the agricultural area where sugar is grown.
What is their name?
Well, you know what? Here's the deal. Ma'am, I don't know your name, so I'll just say it. Cindy, who are you?
My name is Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. Shelley, do you Google?
I do.
If you just type in big sugar, you're going to get all of them. I promise you.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, that's all you have to do. I don't want to torpedo America's corporations, but I do want to partner with them.
No, but the
And that's the problem.
U.S. Sugar and Big Industry is who's writing the legislation
Explain.
that we're passing here in Florida.
We're going to stop. We're not going to do this. I'm going to take control of it if you don't mind. Okay, so I forgot where I was going, so I'm just gonna go to the next question. It was fabulous. Oh, well. Can you tell me, Anissa, I think this is gonna be for you, but it might be for me, for all of you. Can you, okay, I'll get it. Can you tell me who's responsible for all of the endangered and suffering and dying wildlife?
So we have animals that are.
Some time to wrap up so then you all can go out and talk to people. Is that fair?
Sure.
I want you to know, we've already committed to doing more, and we've committed to doing more in both counties, and I would be willing to say probably a lot more counties. The press conference, I'm hoping we will be able to announce some of those. I'm working with some folks outside of Lee County and Naples, and Collier County, to bring you more. We know this is important, and we want to be able to make sure that you feel comfortable doing what you have to do to get the right people to the right places to fix this problem. So, with that, I'm going to ask Carissima to please wrap up and tell us what you thought tonight and what you want people to walk home remembering you for.
So I would like to thank all of you for coming here again tonight, and it was a great event, especially with all of us. So the most important thing that is the take-home message, again, like everybody else said here tonight, this is a nonpartisan issue, everybody. Doesn't matter what party you stand for. It's really important for us to all, together to make sure that our current legislature and our current elected officials know how we feel about the environment, that this is our livelihood. If you don't have an environment, it affects everybody. It affects our health, the marine life, it affects the economy, it affects the ecosystem, it affects everything around us. I want my child to grow up in the same blue waters that I was raised in. So it's really, really important for us to work for the candidates that truly in their heart believe in the environment. We need to bring back the harmful algae bloom task force, which was defunded in the year 2001. These scientists were working hard for us. They were preventing these episodes of horrible toxins from happening. What happened to that task force? Why was it defunded by the government? I'm sorry, I get very passionate. And we also need stricter regulations for these farmlands. Like Anissa said, we need farmers. I'm not saying we need to get rid of them, but we need to put regulations on these pollutants that are coming into our water. We need to train our college students and our other workers if they do not become farmers, or if we need to have them take another job, we need to train them in other natural resources such as solar power plants. So that's the most important thing. Just make sure you vote. Make sure you vote for someone who's true to their values. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all for being here, and thanks for Cindy and all of our guests, Teresa Water, and Captain Water, everybody else for being here. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Carissima Tiny, because she was instrumental in organizing this event tonight, which I think has been a great success. And Janelle.
Janelle, stand up. Where are you?
Because also did much to organize this.
But we'll find her for you.
It is important that we vote for people who truly believe that we should clean up the environment, truly believe in science.
Who are those?
Right?
We will get you information.
But it's important to believe in science, and I think we've come to a place in time where people their priorities are in the wrong place, okay? So development and money and greed has replaced a care for our environment and a trust of scientists to tell us what needs to be done. And the fact is that these are solvable problems. It truly is solvable. Not overnight, no, but if we attack this on every single front that needs to be dealt with, we can solve this problem. Other areas have solved similar issues, and we can do the same. And so take hope in that together we can influence our legislators, we can vote new people into office if that's what needs to happen. We can put pressure on these people whose priorities are not aligned with ours, and we can change things, and we can make this better.
So Jennifer's absolutely right. We can make things better. We have to take the individual responsibility to say this is on our shoulders, right? It's really easy to say, you know, the government this, the government that. We are the government. We vote them in. The government is not some far off entity. We are the government. We put those people into office, and they should be representing us. And if they're not, they can find new jobs. And we can put people in that do represent us. We have to believe in science and understand that there are solutions to the questions that we have. And we can't be using old science. We can't be using old data to try and fix new problems that are getting worse and worse. We have to trust in people like the Waterkeeper and Captains for Clean Water and make sure that what we're doing is making decisions in the best way possible. You want to make an informed decision. That's what scientists want to do too. We want to have the best data available for us. So we have to push to make sure that science and technology and education are funded so that we can continue to have the best data, not only today, but into the future. I am proud to call Florida my home. I want to call it home for as long as I possibly can. I want it to be safe and clean, and I want it to be a healthy environment for all of us. No matter what your political party, I want you to be able to breathe clean air and drink clean water and be able to go to the beach and rely on your environment to support your economy. So we have to do more of these, and we will do more of these. It doesn't end tonight, but tonight I think is a really good start. Meet 4 other people that you don't know.
No, 5.
5. No, tell 5 people that you do know, but meet 4 people that you don't know, and then you carry the 2. No, but meet people. Meet people here tonight that you don't know. Go to the back of the room. If you're up front, go to the back and say hello to 4 new people. Get their information. Get connected. This is how we do things. This is the grassroots level. Okay, we don't have $1 million, but we have this group right here, and we can get connected and make sure that our elected officials listen to us. And that's what this is about, being heard. So thank you very much.
Okay, 2 questions from the audience. You're on.
Along with the, I agree 1,000%, but is there more we can do? Are there email boxes that we can overload? Are there people that we can?
Yes, so here's the deal. When we first started protesting 2 years ago, that's when everybody came out, right? We were sending texts, they weren't looking at them. We were making all kinds of different. Now they're counting the texts. They are taking the emails. They are looking at the posts. They get it now. They get it really well. So feel free to overload whatever you can. Okay? I would like to say a few words. Casey, where is Casey? Do you want to go before me before I close this up? Or do you?
After is good.
After is good, okay. So, I have been telling people for the last about 9 months, maybe more, but it's become so clear now. This one is the election of our lives.
Yes.
Nobody is allowed to miss it. Nobody is allowed to sit out. We need to have answers. We need to know who is responsible for the answer and getting it done, and then we need to hold them accountable. We need to find the people that are organizing. I've shown you 5 or 6 different people that are organizing. There are parties that are organizing, obviously. There are marches. I know maybe you don't think that marches do anything, but you know what marches do? They make you feel like you're included in getting something done. And let me tell you, they do count. they do count, because there's a whole lot of us in this room that never would have come to this rally 5 years ago. And I would have been here because I like flowers and things, but I try to make light of things because sometimes I get so overwhelmingly crazy and passionate. What I'm trying to tell you is we have to get people to the polls. You've got to get your neighbors and say, let's have a poll party and we'll all go vote together. If you have the will, you need to be a poll watcher. We need people to get up, get out, and be seen, and then shout it out. And if someone asks you who you're voting for, don't lose a friend. Just tell them without rancor who you're voting for. Let them think about who you're voting for. And maybe they'll have the same conversation. And most of all, we have to make sure that our kids are safe. And they aren't safe right now. We make them safe. We do. By who we elect, how we hold them accountable, and how often we contact them. I ask you to join me, that you reach out to your congressman, to your legislative member, to the President of the United States, to whoever you think you want to talk to that day, and the county commissioners, and the city council members, and the education board. They need to hear from you if you want a number once a month. Whatever day it is, sit down and write or call or text, whatever you have to do. Copy and paste over and over again. Let them know that you care, and never forget your zip code. That's the most important thing to tell them. I can't thank you enough. I want to turn this over to the executive director of the Waterkeepers, Calusa Waterkeepers, and a man that I've had the pleasure of working with for several years, my friend Casey.
Well, folks, I will be quick, but there's a story. I think the first email about this event I saw about 3 weeks ago, and this event was going to be held in a 50-seat room over there. And then a few emails later, they were looking for a room that would seat 100 people. And a few emails later, they said, well, that's not going to do anymore. We need, and Will Brather, who runs this theater, and thank you to Mary. They said, well, let's just do it in the main auditorium. And I really don't see an empty seat. This is kind of an amazing thing to unspool in 3 weeks, and it shows you what can be done when people come together to share information and share like-minded ideas about how we can improve our world, which is what it's all about. Calusa Waterkeeper has been doing yeoman work for decades. Kasani, Gene Gibson, John Capice. So I'm really pleased to join them. There are envelopes on your table. If you have a buck, stick a little donation, because some weeks we don't have money to do the cyanobacterial testing that we want to do every week. Some weeks we don't have the money to do that. If you want to put a check in there for Captains for Clean Water, for the Sierra Club, for Pachamama, we'll make sure they get the check. It's all the same effort. So if you have a moment, kindly do that. And there's a young man who offered a painting. I think his name is Angelo Della Vega. Is he here? Angelo? Yeah? So he's donated a painting that he did. He's a local artist. And this is, from what he described to me before the event, this is Bonita Beach. And this is the way he imagines it when it was beautiful when he was growing up. And this is what it looks like today. The same image, green, red, polluted, dangerous. And this is what he sees coming down the pipe. Come on up. I think I got your first name wrong. Camilo Della. So Camilo is donating this. The print alone costs $50. So we would like to see if somebody would want to pay $70 for this. We have $70 from Holly. Talk about the painting for a second.
So it's not actually a painting. This is a picture from Bonita. I'm a drone cinematographer. And this place is very close to me because that's where I take my dog. That's when, when I have all the problems in the world, that's where I go to find peace, to go back to my roots, to kind of find it. And last 4 days ago, I was just riding a motorcycle down, and I did some simple song on it, and the smell, just, it was just really sad for me because right now, the nature is sustaining our faults. The fall, it's really, it hasn't got to us yet. Right now, we see all these 4,000 fish dead inside of the island. We see the whales, we see the turtles, we see all these animals dying. And this is a very fragile ecosystem. We know this. It's not like we haven't been taught. And, it's just sad because, we're part of the ecosystem and we're the ones who cause all this. So we need to repair it because, I want my beaches back. I want to be able to take my dog there and have fun and, protect my planet because we all live in it and we should be protecting it too.
And we have a bid of $70. Anybody want to do
100.
100. There we have $100. 150. 150. Wow. That's spectacular. 200. And he's going to sign it. He's going to sign it and dedicate it to whoever buys it. 200?
250.
Do I hear 250? Do I hear 250? My goodness, we are on a roll. Well, I think we're going to leave it at that. And that's really, really generous of you folks. Thank you so much. Andrew. All right, Andrew got it for $250, and we'll get you in with the little and sign it over to you. Really appreciate it. That's fantastic. So thank you, Burisma, Jennifer, Anissa, my friends. Thank you, Cindy, and thank you for your attendance and your interest. And let's keep it moving. Get it going. There's a lot of work to be done.
Where's the news media? Why aren't they here? They're coming on Thursday. Okay, March the 2nd.